Let's talk a little bit about why you decided to write this specific story about the Holocaust.
And first of all, I'm not an expert in Holocaust, and I can say that I decided a little bit by chance. I work at the foreign desk of my newspaper, and I work a lot with the Middle East. I've been correspondent from Jerusalem, so I know Jewish culture and I know the story very well. I know it also because being Italian, Holocaust and the Second World War as a huge Italian responsibility. So this is part of my background, but I'm not an expert. I'm not an historian, and I'm only a journalist. I've been in the past many times in Auschwitz with institutional visit. And once, few years ago, I realized it in Israel as well, but I realized that the last Holocaust survivor are almost disappearing. You know, the last one are in their 80s or 90s, and the big question mark for whoever work with Holocaust is what will happen once the last one of them will die, because they who deny Holocaust, the Holocaust denier, they always try to find contradiction, but you know they will have their job easier once the last one will die. So few years ago, once I realized this, I decided it was more an exercise of memory to write a very small book, which was an e-book with 6 interviews to 6 survivors with different stories. But it was just interview. I went them in their place, in their apartment, in Poland and in other countries, and I asked them about what happened, how, their age, their memory, how do they felt after the Second World War when they came back. And so it was the first time that I went more deeply into the stories of the Holocaust. And in the Auschwitz Memorial Archive, where I work for this small book, I realized that there are thousands of stories not written. I mean, everybody knows about Anna Frank, but there are thousands of stories like hers, which have been written by nobody, and are there in the piece of paper or like audio tape, because what the Auschwitz Memorial Archive does is to try to take the voices or the letters or whatever by the survivors before they die. And there was also the story of Mala and Dedek, which for me was completely unknown, but it was very, very well known by the people working in Auschwitz Memorial. They call them Romeo and Juliet. But outside, no. I asked and I looked for documents in the Yad Vashem Memorial in Jerusalem, in the Jewish Museum in Washington. Track of the two with their names, but anything else. So I mean, I decided, wow, that story is not known. For me, it was and it is an amazing stories of love in the hell, but also stories of human resistance. And so I decided to work on it and to try to get the more information I could.
You you were speaking about memory, about the importance of memory and the importance of preserving the memory, especially of those that are no longer with us. And I think this is a very important part of the narrative of the Holocaust and of the survivors. But one of the things with memory is it's a very unreliable witness, memory. And these books, what they do is they they make us part of the memories of these people. And yet there is a I don't know if to call it a danger of romanticizing these memories. How do you avoid doing that as a writer?
This is what really I didn't want, because I know that is the worst damage you can do to the memory. And listen, this is also the reason why the survivors, the Holocaust survivors, they kept silent for many decades after the war. The age of witness, as it's called, start only at the end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s, because till that moment, everybody came out alive from Auschwitz, but Birkenau and from the lager ward, kept silent because they didn't want either to get compassion or pity, either to be considered mad, and they kept silent. And at a certain point, they started to talk. Someone started to talk and to describe exactly, without any rhetoric, like things as they were. And this is the only things I do believe it works. I know, for example, that in the world is very famous an Italian movie. I don't know how it's translated here. La vita è bella. And I'm sure that in Mexico, it was very famous. And I do understand the intention, because the intention is to try to tell a story which is very difficult to tell. And but it's true that a little bit it make the frame romantic. That's why, for example, I can tell you that some of the survivors, they didn't like it, because it's, a very famous. He passed away a few months ago. French intellectual Claude Lanzmann, and his famous movies is about Holocaust, many hours. He always said that it was impossible to put on the screen or to write anything about the Holocaust, because it was something that we can't even think of. I do believe the opposite. We can tackle the issue, but we have to be to have a little bit of distance. And I did it like this. It's a love story, so there are some aspects which are romantic. And it's normal, when you have a young lady and a young man, and they love each other in Auschwitz, and they decide to escape together, and all the friends of Edek, they tell him, don't go with Mala because she's Jewish. They're gonna kill you. You don't have any chance, and you want to do it. That's romantic. We can't say anything else, and that's also love. But at the same time, it happened in a frame which has nothing of romanticism. And so I try to be very, very serious and very strict on the detail of the stories. What I could find from the true voices, very few, unfortunately, but from the documents, from the German documents as well. And then I asked two different experts to check the book at the end, in order to avoid any details a little bit exaggerate, or because I didn't want it. I think that it's not useful, and I think that you're right, that the danger is there. I think of La Vita è Bella, and even if the intention are good, the effect can be, yes, but they could have loved in Auschwitz, so it was not that bad at the end of the day.
Right, that's exactly what I was going to, because you talked about negationists, people that deny that it ever even happened, or something that is even more insidious, I think, that they deny that it was as bad as it's portrayed. They say, well, if they fell in love, if they had this beautiful love story in this environment, then it couldn't have been that bad. And that's why I think that these stories, which is it's not the only love story in the Holocaust. This story, what? How do you write about something as personal as a love story? In you said love in hell. Like how do you approach the matter of love?
First of all, what you say, it's very, very true. And I give you an example. For the details I collected and the puzzle, I realize Mala and Dedek, they felt in love, and they very, very probably had also sex, which is something that it's even more I don't know how to say, is not a shame, but it's a kind of it's impossible to think. It's really impossible to think. Working on this part of the book, I asked this question to survivors, even survivors who didn't know Mala and Dedek, but about the life in the camp, in Auschwitz and in other camps. And the issue was this: there was sex in the camp. And it was not like the sex that we think of as free men and women. It was desperate. It was like the last breath of life. But there was. And sometimes it was, maybe sex was like contact, human contact. Could be between women, between men, but not like intense homosexuality. It was like, tomorrow I don't know if I'll be alive, and that's the last hug I have. But this was a super taboo among the survivors, because very few of them, they accepted to talk about it, because the idea was whoever tackled the issue will give the excuse to undermine the hell. But it's different. It's the last breath of life. So just to give an example of what we're talking about, and to write about this, me, I can say that probably I wrote as a woman. And I'm not underlining as a woman, like as a feminist, and I do not believe in the special idea of the pink power, but in the women's sensibility, yes. I work many times in the war zone, and I know that women in war zone, they work in a different way from men. They tend to preserve life much more than them. And so I try to work from the point of view of a woman, and I can do it because I mean, I could try to put myself in the clothes of Mala, and then as a woman, it's not impossible to think of the chance of love. Because there were kids who were born in Auschwitz. Then most of them they passed away. They were killed. They finished in the gas chamber. But they are born in Auschwitz. So for a woman, there was also in the middle of the genocide. And the genocide was also the genocide preventing the women to give birth forever with the experiment and operation. And still there was life. So if you put yourself in on the point of view of a woman, well, there is a part at the very beginning where, and for me it's very, very moving. Mala is deported, and She's the first one of her family, and she's deported while she had already found an apartment where it was possible to hide all the family, but she can't do it. She's arrested, and she's deported to Auschwitz. At that point, she started to go every day. She can't move because she can't speak many languages, so she has a job somehow, and she started to go every day to the gate, the main entrance of Auschwitz, where the train and the convoy arrives, to see if she can find her parents. But principally she's looking for the three nephews, because she had no kids, but the three nephews that she loved a lot of her sister, less than 15 years old, the three of them. And at a certain point, she knows from others that they are in another camp before Auschwitz, still in Belgium. And she managed to find a last minute, she had an idea. It's a complicated story, but she managed to free them. She's not free, but she managed to free the three, and it's life for her. Unfortunately, after a few months, they are deported again, and they are killed immediately when they arrived. But this is love.
How? What? There's a point in the book where you said this is a love story, but it doesn't have a happy ending because it is born in a tragedy and it ends in tragedy. What do you think a book or a story like this can teach us now in the 21st century?
There is, and that's why I'm very proud, and I feel a moral duty to tell the story of Mala, and I'm very proud when I have the chance to talk about it, because there is much more than the story of the Holocaust. I mean, of course, they can teach us what happened, and it's never useless. But more than this, I found them, the two of them, very modern. Because in a situation like Auschwitz, they broke all the wall and all the taboo they can. She's Jewish and he is Christian. The two communities, they are more than separated outside and inside the camp. He's also a Christian Polish, so coming from a context which was anti-Semitic, even before the war. So, first of all, the two, they fall in love together, breaking the highest of the wall in that moment. But it's not the only one. Both of them, they have more chance to survive than the other. Edek is not Jewish, so his destiny is not to be killed because of his religion. He could survive. Most of his friends survived, and he's only a political prisoner. So being a political prisoner and being one of the first one, he is free of movement in the camp. He was in the organization of the camp, so he can go, he's one of the few who can go in the women's side of the camp. Mala, same. She can speak many languages, and this is for her the key to get a kind of job. She became the translator of the German. And there is also the capo of the camp. She loves Mala very much because she's very efficient. She's very good in languages. And she's what they call staffetta. She passed from one side to the other side of the camp with documents. So because of these two different rules, but rules which are in the structure of the camp, they have food, which is something that the other do not have. It's not food, it's not that they have, but they can eat. She's not obliged to use to dress the uniform. of the camp. So she also looks like better than the ghost, which are the other women in the camp. She can have her hair. And in this position, you have in the story of the camp many and many and many stories of people who take what they get for themselves. And this is also something that we cannot condemn, because when you are in that situation, there is a famous book from a famous Italian survivor, but he passed away years ago, Primo Levi, I sommersi e I salvati. You could say that everybody in Auschwitz were martyrs, but not all the martyrs are saints. And me also, I'm not sure. Once you get bread and water and you can have a shower, it's not mathematical that you are going to share it. They did it, both of them. So another taboo. You have a Jewish capo in the camp. Once you have a little bit power, you tend to save it for yourself. So they didn't do it. I cannot find about her one single voice of survivors or letters or documents where you can feel jealousy for Mala and you can feel anger for her, if we can call privilege, life in the camp. Nobody, because what she did, it was every time to try to share, and with a specific idea. She was very rational on it. She always tried to help the youngest and the strongest, because her idea was to make the world aware of the hell of Auschwitz. And in order to do it, you needed the stronger to resist, to survive, and to tell the world what happened. So her help was a rational help. It's not that she didn't help the old or the people with very serious disease, but they had no possibility to survive. So she was always rational in doing this, to help the one who could do it, who had more chance to go out. So another taboo. And then there is another taboo again. In the camp, there were group and network, like resistance group, there were the Catholic resistance, there were the communist resistance, Jewish communist resistance, and being a part of a network made you less weak. And also the memory. For example, the Communist Party in France, they took alive the memory of the women partisan, Jewish partisan survived from the camp. Neither Mala, neither Alec, they never joined any group. They were lonely wolf, working by themselves, but for the others. And in that situation, it's again another, I want to use the word taboo, because it was really going against all odds. And so I think that in a world where today, because of the economical crisis, identity crisis, reaction to the globalization, for many reasons, what we are facing in the Western world, but in Mexico I think is the same, in the United States, in Europe is huge, is that a tendency to close ourselves in the original tribe, national tribe, religious tribe, walls. So today you have two, like Mala and Dedek, in Auschwitz, breaking all the possible wall. I think that the message it's even more contemporary than only the ones of the Holocaust, even if the ones of the Holocaust is the frame, because of course it's the frame. And I feel them very modern. And I do believe that the reason why they are unknown is also this breaking taboo, because nobody had any interest in these decades to take alive their name. not the side of Edek, not at all, because his father is completely rejected his memory after the war, because in his mind Edek was mad. He could be alive, and he was killed because he tried to escape with a Jewish woman. So was completely neglected. But from Mala's side as well, you have the Holocaust, so the unicum in the human history, and there are people in the Jewish field, and they do not understand how possible, while your people is killed by genocide, to love someone from the other side, not from the German side, but anyway, not someone of your community, and to even think of escaping for love. So nobody had any interest in taking alive their name. And
going to a more general area of your work as a writer, what do you look for in a story? I mean, this is a love story, but you have written about war, about conflict. What do you think links these two kinds of books?
the war and Islam and the books I wrote previously, they were mostly about my job and about contemporary world and about cultural and religious wall. I do believe that it's the same. Of course, in the Holocaust, you have something more. That's why it is a unicum. That's why, the main idea is never again, because the idea of mankind has always had enemy, but the idea to genocide your enemy and to prevent them to reproduce themselves, it's an unicum. It happened in Rwanda as well, for example, but there are very specific cases. You cannot compare with other kind of conflict or civil war or what else. But when I look today, I have a daughter. She's 7 years old, and I try to teach her the war where I grew up, with probably with an excess of optimism. I believed it was forever. That at a certain point there was the big illusion of the end of the war, Fukuyama in the States. So after the end of the Cold War, we could go all together with our differences, but the end of the story was the end of the war. No prophecy was never so wrong in a so short period of time. And today, even in Europe, which for me, I used to think of it as a kind of island of really, we managed to find a solution somehow to stay together. And if you look at us now, sovereignism, nationalism, Italy first, France first, Austria first, Germany first. Here you have America first. But it's more than this, because inside there is the anger of a social class, for example, the class who suffer more from the economical crisis or the globalization. I mean, there is a kind of feeling of revenge. And so you can see that unfortunately it's not true that the progressive destiny, it's a one way, and we cannot go back, because our destiny is to progress slowly, 1 step ahead, 2 steps behind, but going. Me, I'm optimistic, but I can say that today I'm not that sure that our destiny is to progress slowly. We can go back. I don't want to say that we can go back to Auschwitz, but we can go back to very tough situation of conflict, interracial, social classes, intercultural, and it's possible. And today is more possible than in the past. And so I mean I think that all the situations are related, and it's not that I want to compare the story of Auschwitz, so fascismus and nazismus, with today's world. Historical frame is different, but this need of looking for a scapegoat, this feeling of this need of being in your tribe, whatever it is, cultural tribe, national tribe, religious tribe, but this need of a tribe as a revenge for the year of globalization, where we're supposed to be all together in the same village. I think that it's very, very it's something that you can breathe. And you can breathe it in Europe, which I mean, I would have said only a few years ago that was safe from this mood, and it's not the case. So it's related. When I try to explain to my daughter, 7 years old, what's happening in Europe now, why Syria is close to us and immigrants, and why she's coming to Mexico tomorrow, and why in Tijuana they want to build a wall. When I try to explain to her, I find the same difficult that I found when I try to explain what happened before Auschwitz. So it's not, I don't believe that we are going to have new Auschwitz, and know that what we are doing Western world with immigration is the same that what happened with the Nazi. But I want to say that this new culture of differences and underlining differences and underlining what divide us more than what unite us, books, for example, this is very dangerous, and this is it's out of the time.
Thank you very much.